Hello, everybody. This is Servet Hassan. It's Sunday evening, and the show is Intuitive Inc. We've got a really great guest with us tonight. His name is Brett. Oh, that's not good. It's Brett Bevell. He's the author of The Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. He's also written the Reiki Magic Guide to Self-Attunement, Reiki for Spiritual Healing, and Energy Healing for Everyone, as well as the poetry books, and I love this, America Needs a Woman President, and America Needs a Buddhist President. And I suggest his next poems be, how about a Buddhist woman president? How about that?
That works.
Anyway, it's a poem that initially aired nationwide on NPR's All Things Considered. Brett's also the winner of a 1995 Paul Laurence Dunbar Poetry Prize. He's the author of a book of collected poems of the I Sing. And he also teaches regularly at the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies in Rhinebeck, New York, which is where I believe he's calling from, and at the Sanctuary in help me say this, Phangan?
Phangan.
Wow, Thailand. He's been a visiting teacher at Esalen Institute. He's incredible. And his book, I actually read his book, so and I loved it. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So welcome, Brett. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I loved your book. And one of the reasons I liked it right off the bat was because, and I think you say something similar to this in the introduction, because it's been a while since I've read it, but it said something along this line, like it's about energy healing, but it's not assuming that you're broken and that you need to be fixed, which that got me. And I said, okay, because truly, instead, it was assuming that you're a wonderful child of spirit, divine. I'm not sure what you called it, but that's what I feel too. And that the divine wants you to know in your own, when you connect to that divine, that you also are connecting with the entire force that can do anything. Correct?
Yeah.
Is that the basis?
Yeah, totally correct. And, that's what I love so much about this particular modality is that it kind of, pushes you into this place of what I call deep energetic play with the divine, where you just feel like you're just a divine child, playing with the divine and just embracing that sort of divine magical light. And in the process of doing that, healing happens, but you're not really looking at yourself or others as being somehow broken or wounded or needing to be repaired. It's just more like, oh, we're just playing and having fun. And in that process, some really amazing healing happens. And that's why I really love this system so much.
Right. It's really good, yes. I studied once. It took me back to a time when I studied with some Zen Buddhist monks in Santa Barbara who didn't really take visitors very often. I was very fortunate. And they were teaching a group about loving their everybody there had terminal cancer, and they were teaching them to love their cancer, to not fight it. And it's almost like I remember hearing Mother Teresa say, someone asked her if she would go to an anti-war rally, and she said no. She said, if you do a pro-peace rally, I'll go, but I'm not going. You can't fight anything. So when you said you do this dance with the divine, that's amazing, because then you're not like falling in love with whatever it is that needs healing. You're just saying, I'm playing and I'm going to dance, and things happen because of that, correct?
Yeah, that's totally correct. And it's almost like, you're just kind of looking at all these different energetic possibilities and just playing with them. And in that course, first of all, because there's a divine intelligence in the energy, just like Reiki and other forms of divine energy healing. So it's always working for the highest good regardless. And you're just playing with all these myriad energetic possibilities, and the most beautiful things unfold. So I'll share an example for you. I had a healing from one of my students when I was sort of teaching. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. And in the process of the healing, again, the student was working on me, And in the healing, there's the possibility on the second level of this system, which the book teaches, of pulling in different elemental energies, like the element of earth, air, fire, water, as well as any subsets of those. So with the element of earth, you could run, the element of earth, or you could run a subset of that as a particular stone or mineral, or even certain power points on the planet. And so for whatever reason, during the healing, she felt intuitively drawn to run the energy of the volcanoes in Hawaii on me. And, I didn't ask her to do this. She just started doing it. Right. And I felt the most amazing heart opening happened for me when she did that. Now, I don't know why. I visited Hawaii once when I was a teenager, and I've heard great things about it, but it's not like I've spent a lot of time there or anything. But somehow, in her just listening to the energy, she listened to it. She allowed that energy of these sacred volcanoes to come through into the healing. And it was just the most amazing heart opening I've ever experienced in energy healing. And so that's the way the system works. So you as the healer will just suddenly kind of hear like, oh, I'm supposed to run the energy of this place on the planet, or this particular, mineral, or this particular prayer or mantra. And then you'll just be amazed at the kinds of things that unfolds for the person you're working on, even if it's when you're working on yourself. So again, just a very playful and very magical form of healing. Right, and that involves your intuition. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I sometimes compare it to being in an energetic jazz improv with the divine, and you're just riffing on these different energetic possibilities. Right. And it's so fun. Well, I totally distinguish between psychics and being intuitive, because to me, psychics go in and sort of touch energy, and some of them interpret it through their mind, which you shouldn't do, and there's a little room for error there. But intuition to me is your direct connection to the source, to the divine. It's like you have a spontaneous reaction of your mind, which is instinct. You're not telling yourself to blink or breathe or, and then to me, your spontaneous reaction of your soul is intuition. And it's your direct connection to the divine. It's never, ever, ever wrong. So part of what you teach then too is to be able to touch, to get in, to feel that and run with it. Yeah, I totally just, when I'm teaching workshops, I just totally encourage the students to just always listen first to that intuition and to what that sort of voice in the energy is telling them to do. Because, you may even tell them to do something that I've never thought to mention in my book or in the workshop. But often I just say, just listen to that and explore it and see where it'll take you. And it'll often take you to the most amazing places. Well, yeah, like the volcano in Hawaii. Yeah. That's exactly where that came from, Where else did... Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. How did you get into this? So, well, I first got into the whole, realm of energy healing in the early 1990s after a very challenging experience at the NYU Dental Center. And, I had my tooth pulled by a student who was very rough on me. And I was in a severe amount of pain after that experience, and had the good fortune of having a roommate who happened to be a Reiki practitioner, and he gave me some Reiki. I'd never heard of Reiki. I didn't know what it was, but when he gave me that treatment, I was immediately profoundly changed and wanted to learn more about Reiki. So I got my initiation into Reiki back then, and then, developed my own healing skills. By 1995, I got my master level, and then just since then, also became very interested in other forms of energy healing. By 2003, I was studying vortex healing, which is something I'm not a teacher of, but which I did study and train with up to the 5th level. And then the 5th level of vortex healing, the training was on the island of Mallorca in Spain, and it was a 12-day training. Wow. And it was literally within an hour after that training that this energy that I call magical awakening came to me. And the best way I can describe it is I kept seeing this sparkly white light sort of trickling in the background of existence as I looked at any and everything. And, it was sort of like if you've seen the film The Matrix, where there's those ones and zeros trickling across the screen during the credits. It was kind of like that, except it wasn't ones and zeros. It was just this sparkly white light just sort of trickling on the background of everything I would look at. And I just had this knowing that energy was an energy that I could access, and it was benevolent, and good, and that I could work with it. And it has developed into this beautiful healing system that I call Magical Awakening, and that the book, The Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing, teaches the first 3 levels of that.
Mm-hmm. So that's where it all came from.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's awesome. I really like. Now, let's talk a little bit about that, the Magical Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of energy healing, correct?
Yeah, it's a form of energy healing, and for me, so I'll go a little bit deeper. And after that experience in Mallorca, I would often do, and still often do, group energy healings at Omega Institute. And at the time, I would do mostly vortex healing because that's what I was being trained in. And what would happen is after I came back from that experience, where I was seeing these lights, I would be at Omega and I would be doing the group healings for the staff, and I would start to do a vortex healing, and this other energy would just show up and come through very strongly. And I would talk to this staff afterwards, and I didn't really tell them what was going on because I thought it might sound kind of flaky. So I just would talk to people, and they'd say, "Oh, it felt a little different this time, but we still really like it." And then I talked to one of my teachers, a woman named Alexandra Marquette, who had taught me through the first 4 levels of vortex healing, and I asked her, what she sensed about this, and she said, well, it's certainly not vortex. It's a little bit more feminine than vortex energy is, and it's a lot more playful, and you're supposed to work with it and develop it. And the more I developed it, there would be times when I would begin to see these very powerful images that I associate with Arthurian legend, like an image of a grail in my heart center, the image of a crown on top of my head, the image of a sword, sort of a sword of divine light that is Excalibur. And there would be times as well, I don't speak Gaelic, but I've heard it, and I know what it sounds like. There would be times when I hear voices in my head that literally sounded like they were speaking in Gaelic, and I kind of thought, well, I would think I'm just kind of losing it, except when I'm doing these group healings with sometimes 30 or 40 people in the room, and they're all going out into this very deep place. It must not just be my imagination. There must be something really happening here. And again, I've been doing those healings consistently at Omega ever since then, and that was in the summer of 2007. And they're quite popular. And also, in terms of my own work as a healer, again, I've been trained in several different modalities, and I always give people the option of either they want Reiki or vortex healing or some of the other modalities I've been trained in. And what I find is when we work with the Magical Awakening energy, people move through their issues at a much faster pace. Mm-hmm. There was one woman who I was working with who I still work with, actually, a little bit now and then, but after 3 sessions, she felt like she no longer had to be in therapy, and she'd been in therapy for 15 years. And so it's that kind of result that I've found with this work. And, and yet the beautiful thing about it is, like, it's just going into that place of play and just really play and just working with divine imagination.
Well, how many people have you healed at once together, the most in a group?
The most I've worked on it once at Omega Institute. I did a combination of a poetry reading and healing, and it was in the Omega Sanctuary, and I counted, there was around 100 people there at once. And again, I didn't really, it was the biggest group I'd ever worked with, so I didn't know if it was going to work. But again, people were out. People were snoring and just in a very deep, deep place at the end of the healing. So that's the biggest number that I've worked with in any one time and at the same location.
Wow. That's amazing. I really applaud you. I mean, that's not easy to do. Does it just come through and then it just sort of just...
Yeah, it really just simply runs by intent. Uh-huh. So, and the thing is, I don't feel drained at all as a healer. I mean, because it's not my energy, it's just coming through me. So if anything, I tend to feel more clear after doing a healing and just sort of more at peace, more alive. Things seem a little more, just sparkly.
Well, that's
energetic
great.
For me after the healing.
That's how, to me, that's how I know when things are right, when I'm not drained and I'm not. And I also think in your book you mentioned something about you were bringing in another person's energy to heal a group, and the timing was off. And is that right? Mm-hmm. You kind of like slowed it down so that the
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, right. That actually what that was is there was a time I I mentioned earlier my one of my teachers, Alexandra Marquette, who used to be one of the Vortex teachers, and now she does her own work called Source. And there was a time when she was supposed to come to Omega to do some work with the staff, and she unfortunately had to cancel. And so in her absence, she offered that we could participate in a group energy healing that she was just sort of sending out to anybody on the planet. And that healing was happening at a specific time that was for 2 hours. And I was teaching a class at Omega with a group of energy healers that was for 3 hours, but it happened to be at the exact same time, or that, included that time, that chunk of time in which she was sending out this healing. And so I was teaching some stuff to the folks at Omega at that time, and I was kind of watching the clock, noticing, wow, we're getting really close to the time when her healing is going to come out. And I noticed, I'm not done with where we are. And so, do I just, cut people off with sharing and what we need to do to come to a sense of resolution? Or do I try something else? And so I just kind of dropped into this place and started sending some higher level tools in Magical Awakening where you can work with what I call the enchantment of time. And so I literally just used that enchantment of time to work on the energy that was coming to us from Alexandra, and to literally just push it back by an hour, and also to condense the 2 hour healing she was sending us to be a 1 hour healing. So that instead of running from 8 p.m. till 10 p.m., it was going to come to us from just 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And so I did that, not really knowing if that was going to work or not. And then I just continued teaching. 8 o'clock came by, didn't feel any energy coming in the room from her. 8:30 came by, it was all fine. And as it got close to 9 o'clock, I said, okay, everybody lay down. We've got this healing coming in. And then at 9 o'clock, this wave of healing came in as a 1 hour healing that she had been sending to other people on the planet for 2 hours. So it was a really unique situation. And you kind of, again, just one of those very fun, playful ways of working with the divine. And you just kind of sit back and go, wow, this really all is just a grand miracle.
I love that. I love the enchantment of time. You just connected, and because you can't, time isn't really real. So, it's, and I love, I love that. I love that story, and I remembered it. So now tell me, the Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing. Who is the wizard?
Well, there's a lot of wizards in that sense, and that's why I picked that as the title of the book. So one of the wizards is Merlin, who I really see this lineage going back to Merlin. And in Merlin, in the training that I've had, again, part of my training goes back to vortex healing, and in vortex healing, they really see Merlin as being more than just a wizard who was in King Arthur's court, but Merlin really being sort of an avatar, similar to Christ, whereas Christ brought in that energy of sort of divine love and compassion. That the energy of Merlin was about sort of that magical, divine healing magic that was always working for the good. Right. And so that's how I've always seen Merlin. So that's one aspect of the wizard. It's just the Merlin aspect. But then also I think that when one goes through the book and learns the first 3 levels, one of the chapters I refer to is becoming a sovereign wizard. So at the 3rd level, you get the divine light of the divine sword called Excalibur, and that Excalibur energy is very fierce and enabling you to really kind of cut away energetic cords and also release a lot of deep, karmic conditioning. And when you're able to do that, I feel like it kind of helps you become sovereign of your own destiny. And so I use the term sovereign wizard. So I kind of feel like anybody who actually reads the book and takes on these energetic abilities becomes a wizard in their own right. And then I guess the 3rd wizard is me as the author. There's just sort of a wizard energy with that. So when I say the Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing, I'm kind of meaning all of those, really. The reader, the author, and also Merlin.
Yeah. Was that something you were fascinated with for a long time? Merlin, King Arthur, Avalon, the legends of that, the mythic figures of that time?
The funny thing is, I'm not really somebody who's been, steeped in the ancient literature around Avalon. I mean, I watched the movie that came out, I think, in the 1980s. It was called Excalibur, and I really liked that movie. But I've never read, Marion Zimmer Bradley's The Mists of Avalon. I've thought about it at times, but I've never read that book. So I'm not somebody who's delved into in-depth study of ancient Avalon, and so that's what I find kind of unique, that this energy just kind of came to me and showed up to me and just kind of started speaking to me. And maybe, sometimes I think maybe it's because I didn't really have any preconception of what it was supposed to be about. I was just kind of open and listening to it. And there are some of the other people who I've taught to become teachers who are very, very much more steeped in it than I am. But I love that sense of magical play and playfulness. So I feel like on that level, I feel a certain, deep connection to Merlin in that way. But I'm not somebody who really, studied the literature or has become immersed in those ancient legends.
Right. Well, I kind of like that. I like that because it's more authentic to me, which is why I liked the book, because it wasn't being steeped in with sort of the legend and the myth and the whole. You looked upon Merlin more as an avatar and the human embodiment of divine, just like you said Christ was in the same way for consciousness. So that made it more authentic to me, because I think if it would have gotten too steeped in that, I would have gone, something's a little not. It was really genuine. That much I like. And too, very, very, I have not heard this before. The 8 levels of the magical awakening. It was all, it's new. It's different. It really hit home for me. Can you explain kind of really quickly? I mean, people should go get the book, but what are the 8 levels of magical awakening?
Sure. Well, I will do the best I can. Some of the levels have so many tools it will be hard to explain. I just taught a level 8 workshop last weekend, and there's literally 14 different tools that you learn just at that level. But I'll do my best to at least point out some of the major tools that you learn at each level. So in the first level, what's activated are these 3 primary energy centers that we refer to as the 3 cauldrons. So there's one at the belly that flows this very hot, fiery light called dragon fire. It's really good for just burning out negative energies and things that are not for your highest good. Mm-hmm. Then there's an energy in sort of the center of the chest that I call the grail, that has this very sort of deeply nurturing, restorative, healing aspect to it. It's much softer than the dragon fire energy, but has a very, again, it's just kind of that feeling like you're being held by the mother of the universe. It's just very nurturing. And then at the top of the head, there's an energy that will flow that we call Arthur's crown. This is much more about just bringing through the energy of spiritual wisdom and awakening. And so at the first level, you learn how to weave those 3 together for doing a healing on yourself or others. And you can also, again, even at that first level, you can still send it distantly, and you can also send it to large numbers of people simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So that's the first level. The second level, which again is also shown in the book, you become empowered to be able to access basic elemental energies through your fingertips. So the element of earth, air, fire, and water, as well as a 5th element that I call the Mists of Avalon, that just simply has the purpose of taking you deeper into that sense of divine mystery. But the beautiful thing is that all of those, those first 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, you can not only access those, but you can also access any subset of those. So that kind of relates to what I was mentioning earlier about the volcanoes in Hawaii. So one can access the element of earth, for example, to just help somebody feel grounded and centered. Or you could access the element of earth as a particular crystal or gemstone, or as a particular power spot on the planet, or even herbs or trees or anything that is basically of earth, that it would be a subset of the element of earth. You can access that energetic signature through your fingertips. And then the same is true with water. You can access, the element of water to soothe the emotional body, or you could access the element of water as a particular body of water, even particular holy springs and things like that. So, in the element of air, which rules the mind, you can access, that to bring the mind into a sense of peacefulness, or you can also access that to bring through the energy of particular sounds, including sounds of different mantras and prayers and sacred seed sounds. So, when you think of what you get at that level, it literally starts to feel like you have the universe at your fingertips in the sense of you can pull in so many energetic possibilities. It becomes extremely playful at that level. At the second level, you also get an energetic tool that I call Merlin's Wand, which allows you simply with a flick of the wrist to have command of anything that you've learned so far in the system. So that allows you to do what I call layering, where you can basically be doing a lot of things simultaneously. You kind of just, wave your hand and you intend that you're running some dragon fire for 10 minutes, and then you drop in and you do something else and say, I'm running that for 5 minutes. And these things are all happening simultaneously, so you can have this very sort of richly textured treatment happening. So that's just level 2.
I know.
At level 3, you get access to that divine sort of light called Excalibur, which to me I see it as sort of an energetic sort of light existing about 6 inches in front of the line of your chakras, with the handle sort of down near where the root chakra is, and the tip of the sword being up near where the crown chakra would be, but about 6 inches out in front of the line of your chakras. And that sort of light, you can, again, do very deep karmic work with it and very deep release in terms of cutting old energetic cords and just really kind of annihilating and transmuting anything that's really deeply embedded in your system that maybe has been holding you in patterns of dysfunction.
Right.
And but that's one tool you get at level 3. And you also get a tool that I call the magical jewels of the Grail, which to me, even though I call them jewels, what they really are like little bubbles of divine consciousness that you can put either yourself or organs or situations into. And what that does is it kind of just sort of energetically recalibrates whatever you're putting into that bubble of divine consciousness into sort of a more perfect order. And so, again, those first 3 levels you can actually become empowered to, and you can learn from the book. So everything I'm saying beyond that is something that you would have to get from a training from one of our teachers, but still it's beautiful work. So at level 4, what you get is you get 3 more energetic abilities. One is something I call the lake, which basically just takes people into a very deep primordial place in their consciousness. Like it just really kind of feels like you're in that place before even coming into the world of form. It's just this very deep place. And whenever I use that on a group healing, I mean, people just go out. Like I can just see it looks like the whole room is just suddenly in a deep trance. I mean, they're just in a very deep place. And what I find is when you use that on people, it's very good for allowing them to go into a deeper place of release, because their conscious mind is just sort of in such a deep place of rest as it allows people to really just kind of let go. So at that level, you also can access these beings who are called the damsels of the wells. And this is one part where it does actually sort of tap into a little bit of Arthurian legend, in the sense that the damsels of the wells in those legends always had what the traveler needed. So if the traveler was hungry, they had food. If the traveler was thirsty, they had water. And so in bringing through the damsels of the wells, there's just this very sort of deep, nurturing, very feminine presence that just kind of comes in energetically. And then at level 4, you also you can access Lady of the Lake, who, in my mind, I just see her sort of as a feminine counterpart to Merlin, and being just sort of that feminine aspect of divine magical consciousness. And you can actually invite her presence to come into the healing. And when you do that as a healer, like, she will literally, like, you're no longer just dealing with an energy, you're actually dealing with a being, a presence of a being that will come into the healing and do very powerful work. I've often seen her come into a healing and do shamanic extractions, or come in and do almost like past life work on people. I mean, I've seen her really do a lot of amazing things on healings, and she often comes in very fast. And, her work is done often in time, 15 seconds or something. And it's really amazing to witness that. And the interesting thing is, when you get to that level where you're working with her, it's no longer about you being sort of in control as the healer. You're really just asking her if she wants to come through, and if she wants to come through, she's going to come through and do whatever she feels like is needed. So you're not having to direct her or anything.
Right.
So that's at level 4. Level 5, you get several more tools. I'll just talk about a couple of them. One is a tool that I really love that's called the Divine Light of the Grail, and it brings through this very high vibration spiritual energy that just is very cleansing. It feels a little different than the hot, fiery light of dragon fire that you get at the first level. So this feels like a little bit more of a higher vibration, sort of spiritual cleansing that just flows out, through that presence of the Grail. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to just be very brief about these next few levels, because I feel like otherwise I could be here all night talking to you just about
but it's
all the tools in the system.
Too. It is.
Yeah. So that's, there's other stuff you get at level 5 too, but I'm just going to mention that one tool. Right. Level 6 is where you get the enchantment of time, and also what I call the enchantment of dimension. So dimension being that you can energetically shrink or expand things into different dimensions. And what that allows the healer to do is say that there's an issue that's in your system energetically, and it might be kind of nebulous and just through sort of many layers of reality. Mm-hmm. So as a healer, you can actually use the enchantment of dimension to condense that energy literally into one sort of single point. And then from there, use Excalibur or some other higher level tool to really just kind of, vaporize it or transmute it or whatever you need to do. And then again, the enchantment of time, we talked about that in terms of, what I did with my mentor sending some healing to us and how we kind of push that back by an hour. So it allows you to do all these really playful and wonderful things energetically, and that happens at level 6. Level 7, there's a lot of different tools you get at level 7, but I'm just going to mention one of them, which is probably one of my favorite tools in the whole system. You get a tool called Alchemy of the Grail. And what Alchemy of the Grail can do is it can literally draw upon varieties from within all the world's great healing spiritual traditions, and it can run those as different energetic combinations. Right. So when I'm doing healing on somebody, I can often call upon Alchemy of the Grail to come in, and it might run the energy of sort of Kabbalistic Hebrew names of God, or the energies of different rune charms, or the energies of different, herbal combinations or elixirs, or even the energies of different, sacred ceremonies. There's a SoundCloud healing that I posted recently where I was using Alchemy of the Grail to sort of send the energy of the Huna Ho'oponopono ritual. And so, which is a very powerful cleansing ritual. So you can literally, Alchemy of the Grail, you can just tap into so many wonderful and beautiful things. It's a lovely sort of treasure in the system, and again, probably one of my favorite tools. And then level 8, again, there's 14 different tools at that level. One of my favorites is one that I just call the Divine Harp, which for me would be sort of like a Celtic version of Om, in just being that sort of that sacred sound that sustains the energy of creation itself. And when you use the Divine Harp energy, it just has much more of a sense of kind of a deep spiritual, blissful energy that comes into the healing and, just kind of connects us deeper to that sense of the divine. And there's one other energy that I'll mention that is at level 8, and then I'll be brief.
No.
It's just another favorite tool of mine at level 8 is one that I call the Celtic Knot. And what the Celtic Knot does is if you imagine that we are all literally just sort of strings of divine light, and that we are composed of these strings of divine light, that what the Celtic Knot does is it literally can unwind those strings where they feel maybe clumped together or tangled or twisted. And if you think of it energetically, where there's those sort of tangles in us energetically, that's where things can collect, that's where obstacles can begin to be created. So as you unwind that sort of that energetic thread, it allows you, again, to let go of issues and obstacles much easier. So again, that's another powerful tool that I really like to use. And even in level 8, there's 12 other tools, but
I know.
Again,
no.
I feel like you
I just
can't
now.
them all,
No, I totally understand. And people should buy the book to get them, to get a full understanding of all of it. This is a lot for a 1-hour show. But I now in the 8th level, when you talk about the heart, is that also a place where you can find nirvana, satori, whatever you want to call it? Is that?
Yeah, I feel you could certainly, through this system, and that's where the term the awakening part, I say magical awakening. So I do feel like that sense of awakening is sort of organically part of this work, in the sense that, as we come to understand deeper our own sense of interconnectedness with divine, and that everything is a manifestation of divine magic, that it allows you to just go into that blissful space and that sense of knowing that everything is one, and releasing sort of that energetic veil of Maya that keeps us in that place of illusion. So you can work on that energetically, and certainly Divine Harp is one of those tools that can help a person manifest that place of consciousness.
Right. Okay, and the other thing, just from all the levels, I just wanted to have you define the Grail a little bit more, because you mentioned the Grail quite a bit, but when you're referring to it, I think what you're referring to is not a thing, but in fact the search for that limitless divine light. Is that right?
It is, but it is kind of both. So it is that limitless search for divine light, but it's also sort of an energetic tool that you get at the first level, where it's sort of in the area of your spiritual heart center. So not your physical heart, but the area of your spiritual heart center. So it's as you sort of allow your consciousness to deepen in that space, this beautiful, healing, nurturing light comes through. And so for me, when I see it as an image, I'll actually sort of see a golden chalice, but that could also just be my mind coming in, which those things do happen. Mm-hmm. But it's just so it's, for me, it's both. It is both that sort of that limitless searching for the divine, and yet at the same time it's also an energy that one can access at the first level of the system that's just very nurturing and just very healing and relaxing.
Yeah, right. I just thought I'd ask, because you talked about the Grail a lot, and people are very confused about that sometimes. But this clarifies it a lot. It really does. So, what do you think the most? When we work with elemental energies, you're going into all kinds of possibilities here. What is your vision of this work? Does that make sense?
So my vision,
Okay.
My vision of this work is that if you allow yourself to just drop in and let the energy speak to you, two things happen. One is usually these really amazing healings happen, and that's one part of it. Mm-hmm. But you, as the healer, become transformed because you realize in the work how magical and how limitless our universe is. And you literally come into that place where I feel like you become a co-creator with divine imagination, or with, the consciousness of the divine. Mm-hmm. And you're literally just playing with the divine. And it's such a beautiful place to be in that, where you feel like, wow, I'm so loved by the divine that the divine's willing to literally just kind of play with me, and to be in that place of joy, and that place of just pure joyful presence. And I always feel so happy after doing a magical awakening treatment. Like, it just brings me naturally into this place of joyfulness and playfulness. And it allows you too to do things that the rational mind would just say, oh, well, that's not possible. Right. I mean, even when I was doing that thing of condensing the 2-hour healing that was being sent to me and my students from my mentor, and condensed it to a 1-hour healing and pushed it back by an hour. Of course, my rational mind said that's totally impossible. And yet, I tried it, and yet it worked. And so being able to allow that sense of just pure possibility to unfold, and not having to have some, rational reason that's going to explain it to me, but just to trust and go into that place of faith. It was just really beautiful. And so for me, allowing people to really touch that energetically, for me, would just be reawakening their own sort of inner divine light. Like, wow, we really are these magical, divine, beings that are part of the divine, and we, as we come to realize that, then hopefully as individuals and as a society, we just become more awakened and more in alignment with who we truly are.
Oh, could you imagine what a wonderful world it would be if we all
Oh.
did that? I mean, and I get it too, because I really get it. I get happy just talking to you. I mean, I can feel the energy. It's definitely, it shifts. And I start to feel like, oh yes, I am part of that divine creation. And we all are one in the end.
Yeah.
So I do feel that. I get that. Okay, I mean, that's interesting. Now, the other part I loved is someplace in the book you talked about creating the cover. And
creating a what?
The cover of your book. You took this with the energy healing magic on the cover. I thought that was brilliant. How did that come?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that happened when the publisher had a graphic artist who created this amazing cover, and I wish I knew the person's name. I don't, but I really love the cover. It's really beautiful. And in my conversations with the publisher, I'm like, I could empower these images so that they will actually send you energy as you touch certain parts of the page. And my publisher, Paul Cohen at Monkfish, was fine with that, and so I did an empowerment on the cover itself. And so, yeah, even if you look at an online image of the cover, so if you were to go to Amazon or some other site and just visually see the cover, there's certain energies that will pop out to you if you touch them. So on the cover, there's a sort of a shooting star or a comet that's kind of flowing across the sky, and if you were to touch that comet, it sends you an energy that's one of the higher level tools called Merlin Spark. That's one of the level 8 tools that I didn't talk about.
I love
and
that.
Merlin Spark just has a very nice sort of beautiful, sparkly energy to it. So if you just simply touch that image, it'll send you that energy.
Right.
I mentioned the energy of the lake. Well, there's a lake on the cover. If you touch that cover of the lake, it'll send you that energy of the lake. So
right, and you don't even actually have to have the book. You could just even if you pull up the cover, print it out, touch those images. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, you could. You actually could.
Well,
yeah.
I want them to get your book, but I'm just saying.
I think the nice thing about getting the book is the book can actually empower you to the different levels where you can then have that integrated into your own energy field. But certainly, even just an image of the book, you can even, get healing from that and just touching different images on the cover.
I love that. I do. And I believe, I think it's true. You empower them and it works. Now, what's we're getting towards the end here. So, what's the most magical thing you've experienced with magical awakening?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say, for me, I would have to mention my son, Dylan, who is 14 months old.
Oh.
And when he was in the womb, I would send energy healing to him quite often.
Cool.
Obviously talked to my wife about it, and she was fine with me doing that too. And I mean, obviously, he is who he is as a soul, and I'm sure his DNA and who he was meant to be in terms of, the blueprint of this lifetime for him, that's all, part of it. But this kid is so magical, and in terms of the kinds of compliments that we get from people. I mean, he's very beautiful. He's a very beautiful boy, but just the kinds of comments that we get from people when they look at him, they see him. I mean, people are just always raving about this beautiful little boy, and there's just a certain sense of magic in his consciousness. And I feel like, part of that equation was the fact that he was receiving all this energy while he was in the womb, because I would send him, treatments quite often. And, again, my wife and I get complimented all the time about what a beautiful, and people often use the word magical or spiritual, or special, boy that he is. And so I feel, for me, that's the most magical thing that I've felt.
What kind of treatments were you sending him? What kind of energy were you putting in there?
Well, initially I was doing energy to just help clear any karmic stuff that was ready to be released.
Good.
so that he wouldn't be carrying that into this life after his birth. And so I tried to release as much of that as I could, using the different tools in the system. And I also, after he was born, actually empowered him to all the levels of magical awakening. So he's got that with him. Someday I'll actually sit down and teach him how to use the different tools. But energetically, his system is hardwired to be able to use them now. And so, he just, a lot of friends of mine refer to him as the little wizard. They just call him the little wizard,
I love it, and I truly believe in all of that. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
Whatever's going on before they're born. I was born in Pakistan in 1958, so I will date myself here, but who cares? I was born at a time when they were burying baby girls alive, because that's what they did. They were pretty useless. Yeah. So my mom had already had 3 boys, but long story short, my dad wanted a girl and named me Treasure. My name in English means treasure. But I do remember my mother telling me stories, because when I was pregnant, she would tell me all the things they were doing to her when she was pregnant. And one of them was they did energy work all the time, and they weren't allowed to look at anything ugly, or they were forbidden to do. And people were doing energy work on me long before I came out. So
wow,
yeah,
that's beautiful.
It is, and even afterwards, they have all these little, there's a black string around my wrist, they shave your head, they put a little honey in your mouth, which of course they wouldn't do here, but I mean, it was like really, I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, this has got to be done now, and and she'd chant, and she'd do all these, I truly believe that all of that, and I was born at home, so, millions of things could happen to me, and they ensure it doesn't, not by any kind of medical help. They just do it all energetically from what they've been taught from their parents and parents, and it comes down. So I truly believe that your son, Dylan, is going to be amazing. Already is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I could talk to you forever. I mean, I could do a whole other show on the vortex and all of this other stuff, but this has been amazing. So I want you to tell everybody about you, where they can find your book, your website, how to find you.
Sure. Yeah, so my website is www.brettbevell.com, so basically just my name, brettbevell.com. Also, I want to let people know that you can actually, if you want to experience some of this energy, if you go on SoundCloud, a lot of people don't know about SoundCloud, but it's kind of like YouTube, except instead of video, it's all audio. So I have a number of healings posted on SoundCloud that are totally free. You can listen to them. They're usually short, like about 5 to 10 minutes long, but they go through a lot of the different energies. Like you could experience the Excalibur energy, the Dragonfire energy, a lot of the different energies there, if you want to just get an energetic taste of what they feel like.
Wow.
And of course, my books are available on Amazon.com as well as Barnes & Noble, and hopefully at your local retail bookstore as well. So, please explore and
now, if
ignite your own inner magic.
If they go on SoundCloud.com, do they just look you up, or?
Yeah, if you were just to Google Brett Bevell SoundCloud, or if you were going to SoundCloud and just type in my name, it would show up. Also, if you go on my Facebook page, so that would be great. If you want to go on my Facebook page, I often post them on Facebook. So if you were to go on my Facebook page and just scroll down, you'll see a number of the healings posted there as well. So that's another way that you could find them.
Right.
But yeah, they're totally free, and they're short, just 5 to 10 minutes long. It's just a way for people to experience the energy. I do know some people who say that they just listen to them over and over and over for hours to have the effect of a long healing, and that's fine too. It's all out there and it's all free. So I just put it out there for people to experience and to give them a deeper taste of the work.
Right. Okay. And then, do you work at the Omega Institute?
I work at Omega, and I also teach at Omega. So I work, my 9 to 5 job is that I'm the manager of the staff programs there. So I basically create a lot of programs for the staff. I also program the classes for the R&R programs at Omega Institute, and I also hire what are called the teachers for what are called the daily open classes, which are classes in Tai Chi, yoga, dance movement, and meditation. So basically, if you're there in any capacity as a guest, there's like a 7 a.m. class that you can take in yoga, Tai Chi, or meditation, and basically I hire all those teachers. And then I also teach there, so I teach Reiki, traditional Reiki training. So I have a Reiki 1 and 2 class happening at the end of June 24th through 26th, and I also teach a master level class at the end of September at Omega Institute as well.
Okay, so, and they can, is all of that on your website too, or is there a website
for
Omega?
Yeah, that's all on my website. You can even go to Omega Institute and look at those dates. But yeah, the links are on my website. That's probably easier to access. If you go to my website and you go into the live dates section, that will tell you anywhere that I'm teaching or doing an event. Well,
there you go. Okay, this has been wonderful. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Again, give them the name of your website again one more time.
Yeah, so it's basically it's my name, BrettBevell.com. So that's BrettBevell.com.
Great. And the name of the book we've been talking about again is The Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing. And it was, I highly recommend it. I loved it. Thank you, Brett. I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
I hope you had fun.
Oh, I had a great time.
Good. You know why? Because I'm going to snag you back again at some point because there's too much to talk about. There's too much to talk about. And I had a million questions that I was writing down as I went that we never got to. So hopefully someday, or when you have a new book or something, which I know you will, because there's a lot of information in you that you need to share to change the world, because it is a magical awakening. And you're going to be partly responsible for that. So I'm really happy you were here today.
Well, thank you again, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Say bye to Dylan, too, okay?
Bye. I will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was Brett Bevell. He was awesome. I hope that you pick up the book. It's, again, called The Wizard's Guide to Energy Healing. He has a lot to say. I mean, there was a lot of information there. If you start talking about the levels, it just goes on and on. So lots to talk about there. You can get it anywhere, Amazon and his website and all kinds of other. Anyway, be sure to check out my website, too. It's SERVETHASAN.com. All of my books are on there as well, including the last one, Life in Transition. And then I have 2 chapters in a book for Llewellyn's complete book of mindful living. And there's 2 chapters I've written for that book. That's a really good compilation. And there's some big names in there, too. Jack Canfield wrote an article. Michael Bernard Beckwith wrote a chapter for that book. There's quite a few hard hitters in that book too. If you want to get a hold of that, it's sort of touches on everything. There's a lot of. I've had a few of the authors that have written other chapters in that book on my show, and they're good. They're concise. They're lovely. But their information is just. I mean, you get information on everything in there, from meditation to healing to grounding to, anything that's going on with you, you can find an answer for it in there. So I highly recommend that as well. And if you miss a show or you want to hear the show again, you can always go to my YouTube channel, Servet Hassan channel on YouTube. I always upload them on there so you can hear them anytime. I was not sure about this SoundCloud. I'm going to look into that too so that you can get bits and pieces of information from that as well. My blog, Memos from My Higher Self, is posted daily. Soon I'm going to have 1 month at a time come out as a little mini book for each month, so that people you don't have to go back and keep searching through to find certain things, because people like to look up certain things that they tell me they do anyway. So I'll make it available so that you don't have to do that. On Amazon. I'm also writing a book called Intuitive Ink, so that should be out shortly, hopefully by the end of the year, maybe sooner. So we're working on that as well. I'm also available for private sessions, spiritual counseling. Basically, I like to focus on getting people unstuck so that they can move forward, because a lot of times we just keep repeating the same. The faces change, the names changes, the job may change, the city may change, but the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again, and we can't seem to quite figure out how to go from, to the next level, and without falling back to the level we were in. And so that's kind of what I work with people on a lot, which had a lot to do with when he was saying, getting into our past and clearing it, and the karma, and clearing the karma. So I do a lot of work on that as well, so that people can go forward. Also, if you have any comments or anything you'd like me to know, please email me. My email address is Servet, SERVET, at servethassan.org. It's SERVETHASAN.org. And so you can always give me any suggestions, are always welcome. I was talking about you being you, so that you can bring out your full, authentic self. So be you to the full, because that's what's really beautiful. And that's what makes life easier and brings us into that place of what Brett was talking about, a place of bliss, which is what we all want, a magical awakening, don't we? That's one course towards it, is his book. But we can find our magical awakening in many ways. As long as we find it, that's what the main point is that we finally get there to a place where we are our true selves. And then when that happens, life just flows and everything just sort of works. And there's very little effort involved. And, people call it luck, or people call it serendipity, and it's none of the above. It's usually you connecting directly with source, and then things go really well. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Next time I'm usually live. This was recorded because Brett's in New York, so it's a little difficult with his schedule and the time difference. So I'm just glad I got him on the phone. He's a wonderful guy, and he does a lot of really great work, not just through his books, but also at the Omega Institute. So again, check it out. BrettBevell.com, and hopefully you'll tune in next time. I've got a great live show, and we'll take calls next week. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. Be you to the full. This is Servet Hassan with Intuitive Inc. signing off, and join me next Sunday. Thank you. Bye.